Hi, Marcela Bovio. Thank you so much for joining me on the Mary-Jess Meets podcast. How are you doing today?
Hi, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Good. No, thank you so much for coming on the podcast so just to tell our listeners how we first met, it was actually online during a marketing course. And
Yes.
I was so blown away with your technical knowledge and all the amazing things that you've done. I couldn't help but message you independently of the course. and we exchanged voice messages going backwards and forwards, and I love talking to you. So I thought, well, who better to invite on the podcast than somebody I loved talking to than your good
Ah,
self? So
thank you
I'm
so
so
much.
happy. I'm so happy that you were interested in coming onto the podcast, so I get to find out more about your amazing music and your amazing journey. But before we get onto that, how did you find the course in the end?
Well, I really liked it. I mean, I have the feeling that I learned a lot, but it also, I think we talked about this as well. For me, it became a little bit of pressure. Like, every week I was like, okay, now I want to do this as well, and I want to do this as well. And I have a list of pointers of things that I want to do, but it's not like tiny to do things, but more like weeks of work, like
Yeah.
piles. Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
that's exactly
so
how I felt. Yeah,
still working on it. I don't think I've actually implemented anything from beginning to end since then, but I'm almost there, almost there.
Well, I have so much faith in you because honestly, your technical knowledge is amazing. My fans will be laughing at me because they know that technology and we don't always get on. I try and be a good friend to technology. It just doesn't want to know. So with your technical knowledge, it's just very impressive what you've been able to create. Um,
Thanks.
and so,
I have an unfair advantage because when I was still in school, my parents convinced me of instead of going and studying music, to get a good college education. So I actually majored in IT, and well, go figure it. It helps. It helped at some point.
that is
Yeah.
so clever and so savvy. It's just the best setup that you can have for when you want to be a musician, especially in this day and age where everything is
Yeah.
so online, it is so tech orientated. So fair play to you, and you actually enjoy that side of things as well, don't you?
I do. I'm a little bit of a nerd, I have to admit.
That's
So,
lucky.
yeah, putting the little things together and seeing everything like come to life and work, that I find that also very rewarding. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
well, that makes sense. I mean, during the course when we were trying to get Facebook ads to work, I think I sat and cried at my laptop at least twice.
No.
Just, why isn't it working? But I know I'm not the only one who feels like that with technology sometimes, where it would be nice if the computer could just talk back to you and tell you why it isn't working so you
Okay,
can
but next
fix the
time.
problem and move on.
I know. Like, hey, listen, you're doing this wrong. If you click here and then there, then it'll all be okay. But next time
Exactly.
you should ask me because I would love to help you out.
That's so lovely of you. Thank you so much. See, this is why you were so great during the course. You were so brilliant and helpful and gave me lots of advice. And I do know what you're saying about all the stuff that we learned. It's really opened my eyes as to the possibilities. But like you say, it's going to take a long time to implement all of
Yeah,
these things.
yeah. It's
Yeah,
hard work. I mean, it's like a whole job,
it is a whole
basically.
job. Yeah. Well, you know that, having done it as a job as
Yeah, yeah.
well. Yeah, so you get to do
Like
it
three
as a
jobs.
job and then do it again in your musician work.
Yes.
It's a good job you enjoy it, isn't it?
Yes, definitely. But you know
Yeah.
what this downside is then that I can get so caught up in the like technical side of things and I forget to make music. And because I like it, then I like just stop making music and that's not good.
Well, have you been able to make a bit of music recently? Because I know that with your Patreon page, you ask your Patreons for suggestions of what to cover next and they vote on it. So that's a really great way of keeping singing and keeping making music, but also with, other things in mind because you're having to work technically to record it and things like that.
Yeah, no, it's great because so yes, this thing is that I make them vote. Well, first I take in suggestions for like top songs. That's my thing, Like I call it Marcela's vocal challenge, and they have to come up with top songs for me to sing because I'm also very nerdy when it comes to vocal technique. I've been studying for a lot of time, and I like to be challenged to sing, you know, like very difficult things. Like I've done like Child in Time from Deep Purple and Kate Bush's Wuthering Heights and,
Oh,
you know,
yes.
stuff like that. And now they came up with the diva dance from The Fifth Element, which is like literally humanly impossible.
Yeah. Well, that is the idea of it, is
Yes.
that it's impossible for a human to sing.
But I will have you know, because then I looked it up, of course, and there are people that have actually recorded versions that sound very closely to the original. And I'm like, because I was like, oh, well, I'm going to have to like wing it a little bit or something. But no, there's people that can actually do it.
It's very impressive, isn't it? But that must mean that your range is huge, because that uses a ginormous range, doesn't it? It's up to an F sharp,
Yes.
I think. Yeah,
like
and then all the way down as well.
register things that are like way up there.
Yeah.
And I have an amazing vocal coach that I've taken lessons with for years, and I've followed a lot of courses with in Amsterdam. He actually developed a whole new vocal method called the Universal Voice Method.
Oh, wow.
Which is amazing. And I took a lesson with him once because I wanted to sing Der Holle Rage, you know, from the
Oh, yeah, from the Magic Flute. Oh my gosh, I love that.
And I told him, like, Alberto, if there's anyone who can like squeeze this out of me, that's you. And he actually did. And like in a lesson, I was actually able to hit those F sharps once. I've never been able to do it since. I know it's in there. I know. But yeah.
That is brilliant. That's so fantastic. And it feels so great when you're able to create that as well, doesn't it? And then you know it's there. You know that you can get it again. So I'm guessing that hopefully that will give you a bit of confidence when it comes to tackling a diva song.
Yes. I'm actually already working on it, but it's going to take a while.
Yeah, because originally, just so we can explain it to our listeners, originally it was done using sampled vocals. So the opera singer was sampled and then they would play her notes on a keyboard.
Yeah.
So they didn't put her notes, her voice into a computer and then play it on a keyboard in order to create this. So I think that's because they wanted it to sound really alien and like it was impossible for a human. So yeah, it was designed to be impossible to sing.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's certainly a challenge. From what I've heard though, I'm sure you will be able to do such a great job with it, because during the course I heard a few different snippets of the videos that you're using for your Facebook ads and things like that, and I was really amazed at the versatility of your voice. I loved that. It's something that I've always tried to make sure I keep versatility in my voice, so to find somebody else who obviously loves that as well was quite exciting.
Right. I mean, it's you know, because I took, when I'm from Mexico, like I think I told you. And when I was living there, I took like singing lessons for years and years with a classical singer, and I learned a lot. But for me, that was like all that there was. And when I moved to Holland, I started discovering all these new things and different things that you can do with your voice. Like, okay, but they don't have to like be, you know, it's not like it binds each other. I mean, you can do basically everything. You can do a lot with your voice, you know, like if you just make sure that you practice everything and that you keep, you know, working on everything. So yeah, I'm definitely very, very a big fan of being able to do a lot of different things. Might not be the best at anything, and do a lot of different things.
And they all sound beautiful from what I've heard. You're right, the voice, it's such a versatile instrument, and I feel like it should be that way, like for my career especially, because my favorite quote that I actually included in the artwork of my first album was that the voice has the ability and the power to paint in sound the color of human emotions. And I thought, but if I'm only singing one genre of music, how am I painting all of the human emotions in the world with just the one type of singing? It's not possible. Like, so many people try and put artists in a box, but when you're trying to portray human emotions, when have they ever fitted in a box?
Exactly.
And so that didn't quite sit with me. So I thought, well, why do I have to be in a box? Why can't I explore these different emotions by singing in different genres? And so when I saw you doing it as well, I was like, yes, that's exciting. Yeah.
So how have you dealt with this? I mean, have you like encountered like resistance, or like maybe you know, like people don't comprehend that you want to try different things sometimes, or
I
have they
thought that I
accepted it?
would. I thought I would see resistance, because that's what I'd been taught all the while in the industry, that you must fit in a box, like people must be
Yeah.
able to pigeonhole you. And so I thought that I would have some resistance to it. But in fact, my fans have found it really interesting. It's like, oh, it's a different thing that they didn't know. And when I first put up my first rock cover, because I grew up singing rock songs at karaoke's with my mum, and now I'm a classical singer.
Awesome.
But I still keep that. I still, like, my karaoke song is still Guns N' Roses' Sweet Child of Mine. That is my karaoke song.
Yes.
So when I first put up a video of that, it did shock a few people, and they were like, don't ruin your voice.
Yeah.
But then when I explained to them, no, like, this is what I've been singing my whole life, this is what I grew up singing, they were actually just interested to discover that new side of me that they didn't know before. And so I think that they appreciate being let into that part of my world, and my feelings. And when I say to them, you know, this is how I grew up, it's just like you're building more of a relationship with these people that support you. And it's really nice, actually. It's opened up a lot of great conversations, and I found out that I've got far more in common with the people who support me than I ever thought. It's really nice.
That sounds great.
I think it's brilliant, and I'm sure that people appreciate it with you as well, just being able to hear those different colors in your voice and your different abilities. I find that really interesting.
Yeah, and I asked them for a lot, because we've been talking about this before. Like most of the music that I make, I mean, next to my solo work, which is a little bit more singer-songwriter with classical influences, but what I usually do is metal music, and progressive rock, and so most of the people that follow me, or that have been following me for quite a few years, this is what they know me for. And so when I started like releasing solo stuff, and it was all mellow, I have an album which just me and a string quartet, and I'm like, oh my god, like who's gonna listen to this?
That sounds lovely.
Yeah. Thanks. But I mean, if you're expecting like heavy guitars, and you know, maybe it's not what you're looking for. But I mean, luckily, yes, there are a lot of people that were into it, and I'm very grateful that they listen to it, and they can, like, you know, cherish it as well. So it's great. And it's like you said, I mean, it turns out that, I mean, we have a lot in common, these people, and that it feels nice, you know, it brings you closer together. So it's cool.
Yeah, that's the exact experience that I found. But for my fans that are listening to this and hearing about you for the first time, I would absolutely love to delve into that journey that you had. So would you start from the beginning and talk about how you got into music and what kind of stuff you wanted to sing when you first got into singing?
Oh, well, I'm going to try to make it short because I can babble a lot.
No,
But,
please babble. That's the idea of a podcast, is that we have time to babble.
I
That's
love
good.
podcasts. No, but, it all started when I was a little girl. No, but seriously, my parents put me in music school when I was very little. I must have been like 5 years old. And I think I studied like singing and flute and classical flute for like 7 years or something.
Wow, cool.
Yeah, and then I got distanced from music a little bit, and then when I was in my teens, you know, I met, you know, some guys. They were in a band, or they wanted to start a band, so they wanted to sing cover songs, and so I joined in the beginning because we didn't have anyone to play bass. I became the bass player of the band, and then they
That's so
figured out
cool.
yeah, I couldn't play for like it to save my life, but anyway, they figured out that I could sing, so it's like, okay, maybe you're better off singing, and we did, you know, like Alanis Morissette and Cranberries and like
Yes.
stuff, yes, from back in the day. And that's how it all started. And then I started writing songs with some other guys, you know, like progressive. We wanted to make progressive metal music, you know. So, heavy and complicated and very dramatic and whatnot. And then I had another band, and we started to do like this ambient kind of thing, also very probably very artsy, sort of jazzy music. And then this friend of mine, I mean, I of course listened to a lot of music that was being made in Europe. And then a friend of mine told me like, hey, there's this guy called Arjen Lucassen. He's from the Netherlands, and he has this opera rock project that he's been writing for years and years, and it's called Ayreon. And I knew it, of course. I knew this project, and I loved it. And this friend of mine told me like, hey, Arjen is looking for someone unknown to give him a chance to sing on his next opera album. You should send him something. And I'm like, what? No. Me? Like, okay. So, I mean, I was very reluctant because I didn't think he was going to pick me. But I sent him a CD, and then like 2 weeks later, I got an email from him like, oh my God, your voice. I'm like, what? So long story short, he sent like a dozen pieces for me to try out for the new album. He was like doubting between me and some other two girls, I think. Eventually, I don't know how, but I convinced him. And he flew me over to the Netherlands. Ooh. And I record like for the first time. I'd never been in Europe before, so I was super excited. And I recorded on his album. We got along really well. I make sure that I prepare myself like crazy so that it all came out like wonderfully. And then he ended up inviting me to write an album together. And then we formed basically a new band that was called Stream of Passion. And we toured through Europe a couple of times.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and it's basically like this whole journey, because that's basically what I had been dreamed of my entire life, you know, to tour around, like for the first time ever in one of those buses, you know, with a band and going all to different countries in Europe. And he has a big name, so, I mean, he has a lot of fans, so a lot of people actually showed up, so it was fantastic and nerve-wracking. Yeah. And very exciting and just like super great. But anyway, I ended up like afterwards, he left the band and then I moved to Europe. We found out some new band members with the guys that were left and basically continued on ever since. Yeah, that was like 12 years ago almost that I moved to the Netherlands, and I've been living here ever since and making music. Yeah.
That's fantastic. You obviously love it over there then. It's obviously a place that you can really call home now, even though it's not where you're from originally.
Yeah. The culture shock in the beginning was really big because people are very different.
Right.
Mexican people are very warm and very open, and they will like immediately make you feel like a friend, like from like the starting point. And the Dutch, they thaw a little bit slower, so you have to yeah, I get it now, but it takes a little bit long before they open now, so you have to like actually have, and being a relatively timid person for a Mexican anyway, for me that was a little bit difficult. And the dark, because I wasn't used to the fact that I mean, I used to live way closer to the equator, so the days wouldn't get so short in the winter. So the first winter that I was in the Netherlands, it was very cold and it was very dark, and I got so depressed.
Oh
no. Yeah, so I had to do an emergency trip back to Mexico in March or something, because I didn't realize how big of an impact not seeing the sun for so long has on you, on everyone. But
I can, yes. Yeah. I can understand what you're saying, but being from England, yeah, if the sun is shining, then that's a real treat. If it's not hiding behind some rain clouds, you know. But we've been quite lucky recently with the sunshine. But yeah, I do know what you mean. I found that when I went further up north, because I did a few concerts on ships that went up the far coast of Norway.
Oh, wow.
And actually, I was really grateful for the midnight sun going up there.
Yeah.
But it was really bizarre, though. It was like still 1 o'clock in the morning and still like it is in the afternoon here in England. It really bizarre. But I'd have travelled for like 24 hours to get up to Honningsvåg in the very north of Norway, because you had to take an aeroplane that was kind of like a bus service. It took forever. And then we couldn't make the last trip, so I had to get a taxi for like nearly 2 hours to get to the hotel. And then when I got to the hotel, they said, oh, you have a room, but it's booked for this date next month. So then they found me the last remaining room in the town, and I had to walk there at silly o'clock in the morning to get there. And it was light. And I'm so grateful that it's bright and light right now while I'm walking through the middle of this strange town at silly o'clock in the morning. I was like, I love the midnight sun. I'm so grateful.
Yes.
That was quite a bizarre.
So weird.
It was bizarre. Yeah, it's kind of nice though. I really liked it because I really love it when we get these long summer days.
Yes.
I rejoice when we get to have long summer days. It's really brilliant. But I really want to go back and touch on something that you said earlier. Well, there's so many things I want to go back and touch on because I think your journey is fascinating. But you said that your parents really encouraged you to have what I would call a second string to your bow. So when I was really little, my grandma knew that I wanted to be a singer, but she said, you know, let's be sensible about this. Make sure that you've got something else that you can do. Make sure you've got a second string to your bow. So it sounds like you were instilled with that same lesson from your parents and your family.
Yes, definitely. And you know, for the longest time, I could regret it, like, oh, I should have studied music because then I would have been able to make so many pretty things. But now I'm really grateful that they did, I mean, not force me, but kindly and frequently encourage me to study something else besides music. And I did. And basically, I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I've always been a little bit of a nerd, and I liked gaming and I liked computers. So I ended up majoring in IT. So now it's become very useful indeed, because everything we do has to do with the internet and computers and whatever. So yeah, it's a skill that I'm happy that I can, you know, put to good use, you know, in helping me like put my music out there. So yeah.
Yeah, and I've said this to some of the young people that so my third album, Inspire, I worked with young people that I absolutely loved, and I wanted the world to hear them. I felt like they deserved it because their voices are amazing. And I was saying to them, look, if you want to go and study music, then great, but do it with something else. Because if you want to be an artist nowadays, it's only so little people that actually get a record deal. And then the record deals don't last. Talking from experience, they don't last. So if you want to have a career that spans, you know, the ages of time, make sure you know how to sell your art, because if you're creating music all day long, that's amazing, but then how are you going to pay your mortgage? How are you going to pay your bills? And so to be able to create music, you then need to know how to turn it into a business. And so I just so admire your going into IT, knowing how to do that, and being able to sort out the tech side of it, because it's not something that I ever imagined having to do when I was going around as a young girl going, oh, I'm going to be a singer. I didn't imagine being sat at my computers for hours trying to set up the Facebook pixel on my website that still isn't working and is driving me crazy. So it's really very clever that you're able to do all of that stuff. Do you think that that would have been a path for you even if singing wasn't in the picture for you?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if it wasn't because of all the remarkable things that happened in my life, I would have probably just like taken a, you know, a full-time IT job. I think about it because at some point when I graduated, I had the chance of doing so. Like I had this job opportunity in San Antonio, Texas, and it was very well paid, and it seemed like the right thing to do, you know. And then I sometimes I start wondering, like, what would my life be like? I would probably be like, I don't know, like married and, you know, like being like IT manager of some company and having such a, I mean, no offense to anyone who works in an office, but I would have missed out on so much. So
Mm.
I'm glad I didn't.
Yeah, yeah, I know what you're saying, and I don't think I could work in an office, um, purely because I'm not able to be a morning person very well. Like my body is definitely geared up for the late night musician thing.
Yeah, great. I mean, I mean, you have to be able to do that because,
Yeah,
some gigs can get late.
yes, and then you're driving home at like still 4 o'clock in the morning, and you're still not home yet. Stay
Oh,
awake
yes.
those days. Yeah, but when you went into singing, it sounds like you had quite a very classical background in the singing thing. So when you first discovered rock music and thought, hey, let's get into that, were you then thinking in terms of recording and what kind of music you would like to record and what you thought your music would be for your career, or were you still exploring the options at that point?
Well, I knew, 'cause I'm Latin and there's something like always like, I don't know, super passionate and dramatic to us. And so I've always loved music that it's very emotional, very dramatic and very passionate. So I mean when I started listening to rock music and metal music even, that's the kind of thing that attracted me, like songs that are very very passionate, very dramatic. So there has always been that a little bit of that in the music that I make, and through the years it's evolved from one thing to the other. So in the beginning, I wanted to make um, music that was very complex and very difficult, very progressive and whatnot. Um, and then I wanted to make music that was very heavy, and that would get people very excited. And I still love all of those things, so I still make music like that with different bands. But lately, like I've been doing more solo work, getting a little bit older, and appreciating the more like subtle, the beautiful, the subdued, the happy songs sometimes, the major chords and whatever. So yeah, it's been a journey. But I think there's always been a certain the same essence in a certain way, but it's become more, I don't know, I guess a little bit more refined through
Mm.
the years. Yeah.
Yeah. But the journey is exciting, isn't it? I think
Oh
it's
yes.
it's like when you look back on photographs from your childhood, or from the start of your career, you look back on those pictures and you go, oh, those are the styles, and that's what I looked like. And it's
Yeah.
nice. I describe albums and music as a way of taking a picture of your voice and the music that you love at the time. And it's really nice to have those as records of your journey, because I feel like what was the phrase? I think it was Muhammad Ali. I think he said that if he's the same man at 50 as he is at 20, he would have wasted 30 years.
Yes.
And I think that's a brilliant thing to say. And I feel like,
Definitely.
with all life, it is a journey. And so if your music takes that journey with you, it's something where your supporters and fans can come with you on that ride and experience it with you. And I think that's lovely. It's lovely where you can have a progressive journey, and really feel like you are honing your craft, or they're coming with you on the journey of trying something new. And it's so much fun to let them be a part of that.
Definitely. Yeah. And I think, speaking of that, also, I think I've also become way more honest, to myself, and more transparent in the kind of lyrics that I write. Like in the beginning, it was all very cryptic and had to be very, like very metaphoric and whatnot. And now I feel like it's just, that I've come to a point where I can, just let it out. And I love it that people can relate to that, and they understand, like they get the message way more easier, of course, because it's a little bit more transparent, and I think that's also really cool.
So can you tell us more about your writing then, and how you go about writing a song? Is there a method that you prefer, or do you tend to mix it up quite a bit?
Yeah, well, the most successful methods that I have is just sometimes I just sit on the piano and like start like whamming it till something comes out that it inspires me. I record it on my phone, and then I try to like make it a whole song afterwards. But more often than not, well, lately with the whole like isolation thing, it's been a little bit hard for me to get inspired. But I would usually just be like around the house, like singing total randomness, and then I would like at some point sing a melody that I thought like, oh, that's quite nice, and then I would record it. And the songs that I've written that I like the most, I've written that way, you know, like from random singing around the house in the shower or stuff like that.
Yeah, that makes sense to me actually, because I feel like my best melody ideas come when I'm most relaxed. So when I am singing in the shower, and then it's difficult to get your phone to record the thing that you know. Or I seem to write the best songs in my dream and then can't remember them when I wake up, which is very annoying.
I hate that. This has happened to me. Or like,
oh, good! I'm not the only one.
No. I actually wake up sometimes. I'm like, oh man, that's a great melody. I should record it before I fall asleep. And then I wake up like, no, I forgot it.
Yes. Okay, good. I'm not the only one. Oh my gosh. Yeah, you're right. And because I don't play an instrument, I would have loved to play piano and things like that, but like we didn't have any money for singing lessons growing up, let alone anything else. So voice has always been my instrument. And I always find that if I've got a load of chords or a backing track that a producer has sent me that I can just sing all over and see what comes out, I love writing like that. Or it's from a melody that I've come up with in my head. That's normally where it starts. I do have a couple of examples where it's been a word or like a phrase that started me off. But normally I fit the lyrics afterwards. And it sounds like you work in a similar way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. The only time that I've done it differently is my latest solo album. It was an album that I wrote. It has 11 songs, and each song is inspired on a different person. And so they like 11 different people gave me a topic to write a song about. And because the topic was there, I couldn't help but already. So I had like word ideas already in my head, and when I sat in front of the piano, some phrases already came out naturally, and it was tough because it took me longer to put it together. But in the end, I really liked it because I didn't feel like I had to sacrifice any of the, the lyric or the topic, in order to put the song together. So for that matter, it felt like the most obvious way. Gosh. But the way that you do it, because I've written like if I have metal music or stuff like that, I don't write on my own. I always write like with a band. And I also really love it when you get a track from someone, they have no idea what you're gonna do, and then you just like go over it, and come up with anything, any kind of like. And I don't know if you have this, but I really like to stretch the limits of what's possible in the harmony of a song. Like, oh, they didn't play a third here. Oh, I can make it major and minor, and then do these weird like mode things.
So cool.
I think there's also a lot of interesting things can happen to that, like that. Yeah.
That's so brilliant. That's really cool. And that's such an interesting concept for your album as well. Who are these people who gave you the topics, and how did you reach out to them?
Well, that was funny because my first solo album, which is the one that I recorded with the string quartet, was called Unprecedented, and I released it through a crowdfunding campaign. And one of the perks that you could buy was that I would write a song especially for you.
Wow.
And you would give me the topic, like it could be anything.
What an amazing perk. That's such a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
Sorry, carry on. I was just amazed at that. Fantastic idea. Yeah, carry on.
and I was like a little bit nervous, like, oh, what are they gonna ask me or whatever. But like we were saying, I mean, we have a lot in common with the people that listen to our music. So eventually it was all topics that I thought like, oh, I love this. Like, I love that you are asking me to write about this. So I wrote the songs, and the deal was it was just going to be for them. But when I was like on the 5th of the 11 songs that I ended up writing. I was like, shit. Oh, I'm sorry. Sugar. I don't know if you have a rating for your podcast. But anyway, like, darn it. I love these songs, and it's a shame that no one else is going to be able to hear them. So I started like very politically correctly emailing everyone like, hi. So I know that it was supposed to be only for you, but I kind of really like them. Would you mind if I would release them in an album? And I'm like, sure, no, I love the idea. So I ended up putting them in an album.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, I interrupted you. I was getting too excited. It's just so nice that people were that generous, you know, when they've bought something that is especially for them. I guess it's difficult to know how they're going to react. So it's really generous of them to go, yeah, of course, we'd love other people to hear this beautiful song that you've written just for us.
Yeah.
Like, that's really lovely.
That's really lovely. And some of them were very personal things, you know, like there was this girl who wanted me to write a song about how she felt about her mom because she had come out of the closet like recently.
Wow,
and
so brave.
Her family accepted it, but she felt like the relationship with her mom hadn't been the same ever since. That made it very sad. So some of these things are like super, very personal. So it was like, and on one part, very, very honored that they would let me write about this, and on the other part, like a little bit nervous, like shit, I have to honor these topics.
Yeah.
But I'm like, yeah, I'm happy that they like them.
Gosh, that's amazing. And what kind of musical journey did that cover? Like what kind of, it seems they were written for different people. Did you have like several different genres within these songs, or were they all mainly within the same genre so that they could fit on an album quite nicely together? Like what was the sound world for that?
Yeah, well, my premise was, like I told them, like it's most definitely going to be me on the piano. And that's it. So that I could, keep it a little bit easier for myself. So concerning sound and reference, they could give me anything. So there are some songs that are very epic, and some songs that are very small. And then when I decided, or when they agreed for me to release the songs, then I got together with Eric, who's my pianist, that he plays with me, and he rearranged them to make them a little bit nicer. And we wrote some cello and violin arrangements together.
Oh,
so
lovely.
So it's piano, cello, and violin, and they're all like that. Yeah.
That's gorgeous. It's so funny that you say those instruments, because my favorite small ensemble to work with is a piano and a cello. Oh, I love the cello. Oh my gosh, I love it.
I know.
But it's just the warmest, most beautiful instrument, and it balances out my really high soprano voice so nicely as well. It just balances it out on the track. So that's so funny that you should say that. Like, do you feel that same way about it then, or?
Yes, I love it. I mean, I love strings, because the music lessons that I started taking when I was little, they were very classical, and I love like late Renaissance and Baroque music, and I studied violin for quite a while, and I played the violin horribly. So I try to leave it to people that are. I mean, most people would say, "Nah, come on, you're not that bad," but. The guy that I asked to record things, he's so good, and then if I try to like replicate what he does, like I'm not even gonna go there. So yes, I have a very soft spot for strings, and the cello is just so beautiful. Sometimes I even think like I'm gonna try to play the cello, but I don't want to ruin it for myself. So
do you ever use the flute? Because you said you studied flute as well. Do you ever play that in your recordings?
No, I don't even have one anymore. I didn't even bring it with me from Mexico. And sometimes I think, because I studied for like 5-6 years, I'm like, I should still be able to play it. I'm pretty sure that if I had it, then I probably could. I'm still thinking about it. Maybe I will get myself one.
Yeah, maybe that's something else you could explore on your next ones. Yeah.
But lately I've been more invested into trying to become better at guitar, and piano, because that's just way more useful, you know, that you can like perform on your own.
Yeah, you can accompany yourself. That's such a
And
great
it's so
idea.
hard. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. Yeah, because gosh, it's like having to do so many things at once. I do so admire people who are able to do that, because I can't.
Yeah.
I did.
But it's
Yeah.
doable. It's doable. At some point you decide that you want to give it a try. I mean, it takes a lot of patience, but when I finally get to the point that I can like strum something and sing at the same time, and it doesn't sound like squeaking cats, I'm like,
Yeah. Well, I did try growing up. My mum was a singer in a rock covers band, and her bassist had a spare bass that I could borrow. And so I tried to play electric bass, obviously without an amp because we couldn't afford one, as much as I could. And I loved it. I kind of pictured myself as like a classical Susie Quattro,
yes,
which would have been so cool. But yeah, then he joined another band and needed that bass back, and so I couldn't play it anymore. But I was so enjoying that, and I was getting to the point where I was doing a good bass line and singing along to like Green Day and songs like that. It was fun. It was really fun. Like, yeah, I quite like the idea of doing that again. But I think you're right. Maybe guitar or piano might be a better one for me to try.
There are a lot of like very successful female bass players that have, you know, like fronted amazing projects. So, yeah, why not bass?
Could be something for the future. Bring it back up.
Yes.
But going back to talking about what is my primary instrument, the voice. I love how you said that you're very interested in the biology of the voice and training it in different ways. Because this is where I nerd out. Like, I love it.
We might need another podcast episode for this because I am an uber nerd.
Yeah.
Love to nerd out on voice.
I'm so interested in this technique that you've been saying about, because I've studied classical singing and the Joe Still technique I really like. Yes. But this technique that you're talking about, can you tell me more about that? I'd love to know more about it.
I'm gonna get you very excited because I was actually I had the same journey as you. I started classical for a lot of years, and then I started getting interested into other methods. I took Estel courses, just the one and two times, and then I was getting ready to start the whole the whole thing. I sometimes forget words in English. I'm sorry, but I wanted to do the whole course thing to become a certified instructor.
Wow. Oh, wow.
Estel. And one of the two, if I'm not mistaken, people that are able to give those courses in the Netherlands is Alberto Terdust, the guy that I took a lot of courses with and who came up with Universal Voice.
Wow.
So the very cool thing about Universal Voice is that it's, in my opinion, it's a lot more practical because, you know, Estel is very mechanic. So it's like flex this muscle and then flex this other muscle and whatnot. And for people that are starting out, it can be a little bit cumbersome. So this method that he created is based on sound characteristics. So instead of having the figures, you know, like the compulsory figures, he has 8 sound characteristics.
Oh, right.
Volume, pitch, vibrato or not, pressed or free, the color of your voice, whether it's dark or where it's sharp. And basically, just in the same way that in Estel you combine the compulsory figures to create a voice character, in Universal Voice you combine sound characteristics to create a voice character.
I see.
And it's really insane because it works. Like if you're in a lesson and someone tells you, okay, that sounds great, but can you sing it a little bit louder? And it just works. Or you need a little bit more brightness in your voice, and it just works. Like it makes no sense. And the cool thing is that he has a lot of all of this like knowledge from Estel and the anatomy of the voice. So all of these sound characteristics are like mapped to anatomical structures and to acoustic structures, so you can like actually see them in a spectrogram and everything. So yes. Stop me because I will go on about this.
No, go on. I want to know more about it. That's just great.
So it's great.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense as well, because when you are working with a producer and they say, I want it to sound a bit more this, like if you say, I want it to be a warmer a tone, a richer tone.
Yes.
A lot of the times people will do what they need to do to create that without realizing what they're doing. So it does sound like it does make it more accessible for beginners, like you say, and for people who haven't got the sort of anatomy experience and an anatomical
But you know what the weird
experience.
thing is? The weird thing is that, I mean, I know what I'm doing. Like, okay, I need to make my sound brighter. Either I'm going to raise my larynx, or I'm going to raise my tongue, or I'm going to like narrow the epiglottic epilarynx area.
Yeah.
But if I don't have to think about it, I just think brighter and it just happens. And like 95% of the time, that just works. And not only for me, but for all the students that were together with me when I was taking the course as well, because I took like a year course, like a master's vocal course with them, and then a teacher year. And it just works. It's insane. And
That's
they still,
brilliant.
so they have this book and it's amazing, but it's in Dutch. And
please tell me there's an English translation.
I know. I've been nagging them about that. They're translating it to German first.
Right.
Because it's much more than just translating it, you know, like verbatim to another language. But there's a lot of like vowels, you know, they have to map certain vowels in a certain way to certain structures, because different vowels have different loudness and different color, you know, different timbre. And there's a lot of song references, you know, to help you like find a classical character, or to help you find like a whisper character or a belting type of voice. And you need to translate all those references to things that make sense in the different language. So it's quite an endeavor.
Sounds it.
But yeah. I am not kidding you. I am like 100% convinced that the moment that this book is translated to English, it's just gonna take over the singing world by storm, because it's amazing.
I'm excited already. I'm excited. Yes.
And, you know, take it from someone who was like almost, you know, totally convinced that Estil was like the only way that there was. But this is, I think, like equally as complete, because it touches everything. I mean, the book, like I said, talks belting, talks classical, rock effects, metal effects, so grunting, distortion, everything. It has exercises to like, you know, like work on everything. So it's very inclusive, and it's just very complete, and it's so practical.
That's
super
brilliant.
practical. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I love it. Because when I first found out about the Joe Still technique, I think the reason why I like that so much was because all the other instrumentalists can see their instrument. They go, okay, so to create resonance, this is, you know, I need to pluck this string on the guitar to do this, you know, you can see it. Whereas we can't see the voice.
Yes.
And so to finally be able to look at it and then feel it and go, right, okay, so this is my instrument. It just was like discovering it anew.
Yes,
and that was a really exciting journey. And then to feel like I had all these tools in my tool belt, you know, like when you were saying about making it brighter, maybe you lift your larynx, or if you want that warmer, more rounded sound, then to lower your larynx, you know, all of these different, or tilting your cricoid to really get that belt on it. You know, it was just, I was fascinated, because I thought finally I can see and feel my instrument in a way that I could never before. And that was so exciting for me.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to make it even crazier for you.
Yes, please.
If I hear a recording from someone singing, I can tell you, I don't want to get too cocky, but I can tell you like almost exactly what is anatomically happening.
Oh, I love that.
So basically that's what we learned, is to listen to the sound, to the volume, to the color, to the quality of the sound, if it's breathy, if it's clear, if it sounds pressed, if it doesn't sound pressed, if it sounds nasal, everything. So I can like tell you pretty much what's happening without actually seeing someone's larynx, like
Wow.
from the inside. And that's what I think is super insane about this guy, because he came up with this abstraction layer on a system that is so complex, but like I can hear it now, like, oh, you're constricting, you know.
Yeah.
Your larynx is low, you should raise it. It's insane. Yeah.
Gosh, I'm totally going to try that. I'm totally going to try it.
I'm going to keep you up to date because I'm super psyched about it.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. No, I'm totally going to try that, because what I've done before is, like, especially when I'm going to tackle a new song, I look up other people who have sung it. And I really love looking at live performances that are close, so that I can see exactly what is going on. I love seeing what they're doing. I find that really fascinating. So when I'm looking up a difficult song, I go, right, let's find somebody who has sung it live and see how they're singing it live. And it just gives you the clues as to which tools to use to facilitate that in your own voice. Yes. But I've never done it just listening, so I'm totally going to try that.
Yes. Because, I mean, there are things that are like inherently easier if you do a certain things. Like I think you do this instinctively probably, but when you go, if you want to belt higher, for instance, than a normal belting range, you make your voice a lot brighter, a lot sharper, a lot brassier, and that helps it basically like travel and make a belt higher, you know, even if it's not like fully thick chords to get Estel, you know, like they're thinner, but they are, the brightness in the voice like makes it sound as if it was beltier, stuff like that, you know. There's also things that you learn during this technique. But the fact that we can just talk about sound qualities instead of anatomical structures, it makes a lot of things a lot easier. Yeah,
and far more accessible.
I'm gonna send you some links, because there's nothing in English. There's 2 very short videos of Alberto himself explaining the method. Just like the really the basics of the method in English. So at least you can look at that and maybe get an idea of what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. And I'll have to put those in the description below as well, so that anybody else who's interested and wants to nerd out with this can look that up. Well, that's so cool. Oh my gosh, yes, thank you. I can't wait to see those. And I really hope that this book is translated into English soon, because I'm going to be the first in line. The first in line. Yeah.
That's amazing. I think the 2 years that I studied with them, I've made so much progress in my voice that, I mean, it's so inspiring. Like I would come back home, like, because we had basically it was every other week. In the weekend we had 2 days, like 8 hours a day of training, and was just training your voice the whole day. Oh, it was just so inspiring and so awesome. And come back home like, oh my God, look at what I learned. I'm so excited. It's just so cool.
That's brilliant. Have you really, I'm sure over the years that you've noticed a lot of different changes in your voice, because obviously the voice matures, and then when you're exploring different areas of the voice, you do notice those changes. But is there anything in particular that you like about the way that your voice has evolved? Because for me, I was just talking on a podcast the other day saying that now that my voice is maturing, I've got so much more strength at the bottom and the top of my range, and I'm so enjoying exploring my entirety of my range in songs now, and I love that. It's given me like a new joy for the extremities of my range. So that's something that I've been really enjoying recently, and I guess you must have so many stories yourself about things that you love, that you've discovered as your voice has gone on and as you've discovered these techniques.
Yeah, I think the thing that I am most excited about is when I learned how to sing really, really loud. Like,
oh, your video's gone.
Oh,
Marcela.
Oh no!
Oh no! I'm looking at a circle. Oh, here we go.
Am I back? Wait, I'm gonna.
You're back, but you're frozen. I mean, thankfully, it's a good pose. You've not been frozen mid-word. Way!
I got my phone connected to my computer, so I have a better camera.
I see. Yeah.
But it worked for quite a while, but it's back.
It did. Good. Yes. So singing really loud, you said.
Really loud. Yes,
Oh,
because
fun.
well, I guess you're also from a basic classical background, so everything we do is very proper and very nice. And that's not true. You say you come from a rock background, but I don't. The first thing that I did, well, the lessons that I had for the most time were classical, so I didn't really know how to like properly belt it out, and that's something that I had to train. And when I when I actually figured it out, I was like, yes. And now I really enjoy being able to play a lot with dynamics, because this is something that I do a lot in my music. Like I love to be able to sing something like super soft and very delicate, and then just at some point like wham, like like belt it out. I love that.
Yeah. Yes, I love doing that in recordings, especially when you really are so close to the mic and it's like you're able to whisper into the listener's ear as if you're right next to them. I love that.
Yeah.
Oh, it's that connection that you couldn't get any other way unless you were actually sat there next to them. Exactly. Oh, I love that. The way that you can really bring somebody in by whispering. It's just,
yes.
Oh, yeah, I completely agree. And then when you start like that, or when you've got elements like that in a song, it does enable so much build, doesn't it? And so much drama. I think that's what I loved about 80s power ballads. I mean, I love them. I love them.
80s power ballads all the way.
Yeah, all the way. So when you're able to start off with that whisper, where you're bringing somebody into your world, you're just whispering in their ear, and then you're able to really let everything out as it grows and builds towards the end. Like, I love that contrast. Yes. And the amount of emotions that you can go through in a single song when you do that.
Yes. I think that's an advantage that we have as vocalists, that the voice is an instrument that anyone can relate to. And this is I have a friend of mine, a very dear friend of mine, a guitar player, and she and I have worked together in well, basically for years in different bands. And she teaches me guitar and I teach her vocals, and like,
oh, perfect.
She has this new band that she's working on. Her name is Merel and the band's called Dear Mother, for whoever's interested. And they have a singer, a guy who's the lead singer, and she's like, yeah, but maybe I want to do like some backing vocals. I'm like, yeah, do it, because it's when people hear your voice, it's so much more relatable than anything else. I think it's undeniably you know, and I think of course there's a lot of like really beautiful instruments and they can like touch us in a very special way, but the voice is just, anyone can understand it. And if you really like honestly portray your emotions with your voice, it's just undeniable,
Yeah, you're able to portray emotions in a way that's raw and real. And I completely wholeheartedly agree with you, but I'm very much aware of the fact that I am a vocalist. And so it'd be interesting to get a instrumentalist's opinion on this. And it's so funny because I had this exact same conversation in one of my other podcasts where we were saying it'd be interesting to talk to an instrumentalist about it. But I feel like because for so long the voice has been the single instrument that's been used to tell the history of your people or to tell stories, we are so used to hearing stories and emotions portrayed through voice that I feel like I personally connect with voice on a different level. Even if it was just a vocalese and there weren't any lyrics, I can still hear all the emotions that the singer is portraying. But once again, I don't know if that's because I am a vocalist or because as a human being, that tends to be how we feel. I don't know.
It's a good point. I would say that we all have that a little bit, but you're right that it would be very interesting to hear an instrumentalist's opinion on that.
Yeah. We'll have to get one in on the podcast so that we can ask them that question and find out what they say. But I'll always remember a singer that I saw on the Jules Holland late night show, and it was so captivating. It was this wonderful woman who had just sang a folk song completely a cappella.
Wow.
And it was so powerful because it was just her and a single spotlight on her as she sang this folk song, and it blew me away. Just the emotion that she was just able to portray with just her voice. And then when she finished singing, I think you could have heard a pin drop, like in all the houses that were watching, I'm sure. And Jules Holland said, "There you go, ladies and gentlemen, the power of the human voice." Oh, I loved it. It was great. And it was from seeing that inspired me to put a fully a cappella song into my shows. When I do shows, I now sing a Chinese folk song completely a cappella because I'm trying to recreate that amazing performance that I saw on Jules Holland.
That's amazing.
And it really does offer a contrast to the show, because normally, you know, you're there with your band and you got instrumentalists and you're singing your big ballads or musical theatre songs or classical arias, and then you take the audience right down to a Chinese folk song. And even though the majority of the audiences that I sing this to are actually European or American or English, they love it, even though they can't understand the Chinese lyrics. I think maybe it is because the human voice is relatable in that way, and it does cross those cultural boundaries. And it's been really interesting to see the reaction I've got from audiences that are not Chinese when I sing that. So it's just because I'm trying to recreate that amazing moment in Jules Holland where she sang all by herself, and it was so powerful. It was amazing. So yeah, I do try and create what we're saying in my shows.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
It's a gorgeous song as well. I really love it. It's called Mo Li Hua, and it's about the jasmine flower. So it's about somebody who's admiring the jasmine flower and saying how beautiful it is and how fragrant it is, and how they'd love to be able to pick a few of the flowers to give to the people that they love. And so when I sing the song, I do those movements so that people know which point in the song we're at. You know, I try and paint it with my actions. But it is really lovely, and it's nice to add a lot of variety into shows as well. I feel, but that's because I like the variety thing.
Yes. But I think we have that in common, because I really like that as well. And like we said, you know, it's so nice to have people that understand this, and you know, not to have the feeling that you have to stay in one particular box, you know.
Yeah, but doing all the classical stuff and knowing how that works, I'd really like to talk to you more about your sort of heavy metal voice, and how you sing for that. Because I'm kind of like, there's so many different ways of doing it. Like you've got bands like Nightwish, where they had an opera singer for a while, which oh my gosh, I loved it. It's great. And then you've got Evanescence, and like so many different heavy metal bands that have so many different singers. So I'm wondering, what is your preferred vocal technique with those kinds of songs?
Well, it really depends on the material, I think. For Stream of Passion, which is the band that I used to be in, I mean, we quit a few years ago. For me, it was all, somewhere between a more legit kind of sound, so a little bit classical, but not super dramatic, and something that was a little bit more belty, because that's what I felt fit the songs better. But for the past couple of years, I've been working with a band called Mayan, and that is, hold your horses, symphonic death metal. It's what it's called.
Whoa!
That it's super aggressive because it's very loud. There's a lot of, I don't know if you've heard the term blast beats. So the drums are like, it's like very fast and very aggressive. Guitars as well. But there's a whole orchestra actually that in the album. So there's a lot of very like orchestral, obviously super dramatic, super epic passages, but there's, you know, the horns and the brasses and the strings and everything. So it's very symphonic, very epic, but very loud.
Wow.
And to make it even more crazy, we have 5 vocalists. So there's 2 guys that do the grunts, you know, the kind of thing.
Oh my gosh.
And there's a girl that is like sings opera, so she's like classically trained, like completely opera.
Wow.
And a rock singer, and I do basically a little bit of everything. So I join some of the opera choirs. I do more belty stuff, more rocky stuff. So basically a little bit of everything, and I love it because it's, you know, it allows me to do a lot of different things with my voice. So it's super fun.
Yeah, it keeps that versatility there. I guess that's what really keeps it fun for me as well, when I'm able to do lots of different things. So that sounds amazing.
Yes, yeah,
Once again, we'll have to put so many links in this description below so people can see, because I want to see this. It sounds like
very hectic.
The extreme of classical crossover, you know, where you've got it crossed over with death metal. I want to see this.
Yes, it's a lot of fun, and I think I mean, of course, it's not everyone's cup of tea because it's very dissonant and very loud and very aggressive. But what I really like it is that the live show is very entertaining, because you have basically a whole band and then 5 of us. They're like tag teaming and basically like switching places in front of the stage.
Oh, so cool.
It's very entertaining. There's a lot going on. And yeah, we have so much fun.
Wow. I guess I'm kind of picturing a vocal heavier version of the Trans-Siberian Orchestra, I think. That's kind of what I got in my head.
Yes.
Yeah?
I see the connection. Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
Well, it sounds nothing like that, but I need to send you some tracks. There's some very nice, because there's a couple of ballads in the album, and then it's just like acoustic guitar, classical voices, very lovely, but there's also like enough metal violence.
Wow. Okay, I'm so intrigued. I cannot wait to hear that. But what you said about it not being everybody's cup of tea, I've spoken to a few people on this podcast now about cups of tea. That is my tipple of choice. But I said, like, it doesn't matter what genre you're in or what you do, you could do the best show that you've ever done in your life, and you're still not going to be everybody's cup of tea.
Yes.
It's just completely, I mean, it's a bit disheartening, but also like the truth, and impossible to be everybody's cup of tea. And so I feel like as long as you really love and enjoy what you're doing, you will find your tribe that also loves and enjoys what you're doing. Because that joy comes through and that passion comes through, and then you find people who really have the same passions, which is what we were saying, wasn't it, that we've actually got more in common with our fans than I first realized, because I was so afraid to step out of that box and to be something different. Whereas I just thought, well, you know, in this day and age, social media and the internet allows you to be more open and honest about the things that you love and have that conversation more with people. And I wanted that. I wanted to share more of my story and what I love with the people who are supporting me. I kind of felt like I owed them that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. And you know, there's the thing is, I think some people are just gonna like phase out maybe at some point. I mean, not everyone sticks for the whole journey, but the people who actually stay for everything, those are the people that, you know, like, okay, you get it, like you get me, and that's amazing. And speaking of like having similarities, you know, with fans, I started doing this thing with my Patreon followers, and we have a collaborative playlist on Spotify.
Oh, cool!
I'm like, guys, I know that what you're listening to, I'm gonna love, so let's just all put it on a playlist. And so they've been making suggestions, and I've got all these artists and beautiful tracks that I had no idea existed.
Wow!
And it's just like super cool. And, you know, we share it with each other, and so much, because I asked them, like, if you can take a little time to post something about the track, like, who is this artist, you know, what's their dealio? And so it starts like really nice conversations as well, because we all have very similar tastes. So
gosh, that's so interesting. I love that idea. I've actually had, well, in a lesser way, I've had people say that to me about this podcast, that they've been introduced to people that they wouldn't have found otherwise. And it's always fun when you get to share that with other people, because you're like, I think this person's great. And then you share it with somebody else and they're like, yes, I think that person's great too. And it's a nice feeling when you're sharing art that you really love, and you know that other people are going to appreciate it as well. That is a great feeling.
Yes.
So it's nice for like, well, especially because I never thought I'd actually be doing a podcast. Like, I didn't think I would, because it just seemed like another technology that I'd have to get my head around, and we know how I am with technology.
You're doing it.
Yes. I mean, I struggle with it, but I know I'm going to get there eventually, because I don't give up. I think that's the thing. Technologies keeps going, come on, Mary-Jess, just give up. And I'm like, no, I've got to do this. But I'm so glad that I have, because it's enabled me to share the artists that I really love with my fans. But then I've also been able to talk to them about their stories far more than you would in like a post on Facebook, you know, when you discover a song or you're sharing an artist. Because normally with a post on Facebook or Twitter, like Twitter, you've only got a few lines. And then like if you hear an artist on the radio, the artist has only got like 2 minutes to say everything that they need to say. And you don't actually get to build a relationship with this person. You don't get to hear their stories. You don't get to talk to them about the things that you have in common and vocal techniques, you know, those things that I really want to talk about.
Yes.
And so I've loved doing these so that I can actually give artists the platform to share those stories. And I'm going to invite you now to share another story.
Yes.
Because I really want to hear more about what it was like touring in the tour bus around Europe with a rock band. Like, you must have so many stories from that. Please tell us them.
Well, it's that first time was so exciting. It's a very peculiar situation that I love, but also hate a little bit. No, I mean, touring it's the weirdest thing, because I love it. I would love to be able to do it all the time. But when I'm doing it, it slowly like destroys my body. It's very taxing, basically. On everyone, because you're well, I don't know if it's the tour bus's fault or if it's our own fault, but anyway, you're just traveling. So for starters, you share a relatively small space with a lot of people. And I've had the luxury of you know, travel in some fancy ones. So you have you know, you have your bunker beds, like on the second floor. It's a double decker, so you have your beds on top and enough lounge area for everyone to sit. So you can basically fit everyone in the bus either on the beds or in some like area where you sit, and there's tables and TVs and whatnot.
And without seatbelts as well. Like, you're driving around at night without seatbelts on, because you're all stood up using the microwave. It tends to be.
Yes. Technically, you should be wearing your seatbelt all the time, so I'm not gonna...
I
will not further comment on that.
On the tour bus I was on, nobody wore their seatbelt. Well, there weren't any seatbelts in the lounge area. So after the show, we were all fighting over the microwave, because it was either takeaway or microwave meals. It's just not good for you. And we all wanted to use the microwave at the same time after a show. So we'd be stood up getting our stuff together or sat down waiting for the microwave. But there were no seatbelts.
Oh my God.
Sorry, carry on.
To be honest, I don't remember anyone ever wearing a seatbelt which area on the tours that I've been in. But anyway, it's just the sharing of that little space and you know, all the little things that come with a tour, starting with, if you are not quick enough to choose your bunk, you might end up in a bunk that is right above the lounge area where everyone is partying till 4 a.m. which is not the best place to sleep for a vocalist. I'm sure you know. Well, touring as a metal band also is a little bit quirky, because I don't know how your scene looks like, but most of the tours that I've done are with bands that are not like super duper big, and metal is niche. So the shows that we play are an average like for 300, 400 people. So it's not like super large shows. And so depending on the country, and the venue, it might be that you get like absolutely like pure rubbish to eat, for instance, because that's how the day looks like, right? So we arrive somewhere, you scout the backstage area for anything that you can eat, you know, like sometimes there's some venues that are very nice in the whole like pop circuit in Europe, some venues that we're looking forward to because, you know, like they have great cooks and they can take great care of you, and some venues where it's just like sad.
You're changing in the women's toilets instead of having a proper dressing room, and
yes. Or in the bus, like there's this venue in Germany that we went to that was so bad that we just like, okay, no, you know what, I'm just gonna stay in the bus the whole day.
No.
Yeah, it was really bad. So yeah, the indeed, like having to take your turn to take a shower after the show, and you're gonna like unavoidably have a few drinks afterwards and go to bed late, and doing like basically, and singing, of course, relatively taxing material because it's still metal anyway. So I love it, but it's very hard. Like at some point there's always, and I've had this conversation with several musicians that I know, we have in every tour we love it, we would do it constantly, but there's one day where you just want to go home to mommy. I call mommy day, and it's just like everything sucks, and I just want my bed, shower, and my own food, and my cat, and
so, yeah, and a proper toilet, not the tour bus toilet.
Yes.
Yeah, no.
Luckily, so far, I have had no experience of someone like doing, because this is, you know, for someone that has never been in a tour bus. There is no number 2 allowed in a bus. That's rule number 1 of the tour bus. And I have heard of many improper situations of other tours. Luckily, I've never been there to actually
emergency bin bag situations. Yes. I've heard of those. Yes.
But no, luckily I have not experienced that. But
I've just heard the stories, but I made sure that, you know, I planned my days, and I try not to. I don't drink alcohol, and I feel like that was a blessing because it meant that I'd like have some water or a cup of tea after the show, and then go straight to bed and try and avoid the tour bus toilet as much as possible. But then, of course, when you're singing a lot, you need to keep you hydrated. So I would just plan when I drank something. So I didn't know what to do. But yeah, you're right. You do end up going to bed at such a later time. So Rich, my husband, and I were joking that we're in the same country but living on completely different time zones, because I'd be getting up at like midday and go to bed at silly o'clock in the morning, and he'd be having a normal day.
Oh yes, I mean it just totally flips your rhythm. You know, it's stalling on your body, and of course, I mean, like I said, some places feed us really well, and some places just like, you know, some pasta with some like cooked up sausage on top, and that's it. And then you're like, oh man, so you don't get your vitamins, and you know you're not hydrating properly, and you're not sleeping well. So at some point, it's just
and then you've got
devastating.
It is, because it's not just like the rubbish food that you're eating when you're on the road, and having to deal with sleeping in a moving bus, with people making noise downstairs all hours of the night and early morning. It's all the emotional roller coaster of like your adrenaline. Like that is really exhausting as well, when you're like ready to go on stage, you've got the adrenaline, right, let's do this, and then you're doing the show and you're on the high from the show, and then you've got to try and come down so you can go to sleep. Like that's exhausting in itself, having that night after night.
But it's brilliant, isn't
it is so brilliant.
I love it. I miss it so much.
I know I loved it as well. I mean, I was quite lucky on my experience, really, because the main tour bus experience I've had has been with a classical vocal quartet called G4, and they are so amazing. But I feel like that was a lot more of a subdued tour experience than like with a metal band. I should imagine that was a different thing altogether.
I have to give them credit though, because pretty much every band that I've toured with, they're all very nice guys. I mean, it's not, you know, the drugs and getting super drunk. That's, I mean, those times. Luckily, I have not like encountered that, like, or like people that get super drunk and aggressive and stuff like that. No, thank goodness. No, very nice. They're very nice boys and girls. Some of them just go to bed like a lot later than I do, and because the curse of being the vocalist is that you have to try to get in as much normal sleep as you can. So yeah, that's my only complaint.
Yeah.
And that they pick really silly music to play on the tour bus when they're partying.
Really? Like what?
Last tour that I was with this band Mayan, that I told you about, the symphonic death metal band. And for some reason, they had this CD of covers of songs where the melody was played by a pan flute. So, no, but I mean like the bubble song on pan flute. And they would play this every night.
Oh no.
So I'm lying in my bunk with earplugs in and my headphones on top, playing white noise so that I don't hear anything.
Oh my gosh.
And then I could fall asleep.
Wow.
But, yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine that would be interesting for a bit. Not like every night, but for a bit.
First night I thought it was very cute.
Yeah, and quite cool.
Guys, stop playing the pan flute song.
Oh my gosh, it's funny that you say white noise as well, because like that's what my friend plays as baby, so the baby goes to sleep.
Really?
It's I think that's something that it's like mirrors what the baby hears in the womb kind of thing. So the idea that would get you off to sleep like makes more sense to me than it ever has done before, because I know about the baby thing now. It's quite interesting.
That could explain it. For me, it was just like I would rather hear constant noise that doesn't change than someone like laughing, for instance, or
because then it jumps
that
you,
would
doesn't
wake
it?
me up.
Yeah,
but if it's just like the whole time, it's just like
and
I actually like sleeping on a driving bus. I actually like it. It's like it wobbles you a little bit, doesn't it?
Yeah, I felt like that as well. But people were like, "Oh, shut up, Mary-Jess, just because you got a good night's sleep." Like they wouldn't. Yeah, because I guess I'm used to it because I've done a few shows on ships now, and I love that. It's just like you're getting rocked to sleep. It's so nice. And then I really felt like that on the tour bus as well.
Cool.
And it was really nice, and with the memory foam mattresses, and I always had the bottom bunk, and I used to call it my burrow. It's nice and cuddly with my teddy. I brought my teddy with me.
Oh, that's nice.
It was really cozy actually, because there were the blackout curtains as well.
Yeah, I don't mind it at all. I sleep very well, and I'm very small, so I have a lot of room. It's great.
Yes.
The tall guys, they have a harder time, but
yeah,
that
makes sense. No, it's really an advantage being small when you're traveling and being a singer, because of the bunks, because of economy class chairs on flights. Like, I feel so sorry for tall people being stuck into a tiny economy class chair. Oh my gosh! So I do feel lucky.
Are very tall. We had it once. Yeah, apparently one of the tallest folk in the world.
Yeah. And
I was once playing in a band, and we were traveling from Buenos Aires to Sao Paulo, I think. Wow. So we flew with a very small Brazilian airline, and Brazilian people are also small. So we have this guy who is like almost 2 meters tall. He has like huge legs, and the seats were so close together. His knees were like up to here. Like,
oh my gosh! Like right next to his face.
Yeah. Oh, it looks so sad. Luckily, it was just like an hour and a half or something. It wasn't now, but it was
That's it. Oh dear. Going back to what you were saying about different venues, I remember I did a tour, like live video blog thing, and one of them was I was just so excited to go to a venue that had a fridge and a kettle.
Yeah.
I was so happy. I was like, I'm getting so excited about this kettle. It's just, the things you get excited about. Like I could actually get some milk, I could put it in the fridge, and I could make myself a cup of tea in the interval without running out to the bus. Like, yes.
The little things. The little things.
I know. I was so excited about that. Oh my gosh. Because yeah, you're right. You turn up to some venues and you're running around going, is there even a kitchen? Is there a place where I can get changed that doesn't have a window in the door so that everybody can see in?
Exactly. Yeah. It's an adventure.
Yeah, it certainly is an adventure. Oh my gosh. And there's some venues where you turn up and they were like, haven't opened the doors yet, and you're there going, but we need to get in and set up like the whole show. Is somebody around to let us in, please?
Yes.
But yeah, I've shared a few of my sort of tour disaster stories on some of these podcasts now, like with Jennifer Thomas. She's an amazing award-winning American pianist. And we were talking about her tour that she did, where she had a lighting engineer design all of her lights for her so that she didn't have to worry about that when she was on stage. And then the day before her first show, that entire system failed.
No.
So then from the piano on the stage, she was then having to direct all of her click tracks that were in her ears, all of her backing tracks, and all the lights and all the video content that was going throughout this whole show.
Well,
I was getting stressed listening to it. Oh my gosh. But like,
if you're someone who likes to be in control, then I mean, there you go.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Oh. But have you got any stories like that from when you were on the road, or were you quite lucky with people generally turning up on time and equipment generally working?
Well, I have. This is not a very nice story, but I have one similar thing. Like I was playing in with a band called the Gentle Storm at Wacken, which is the largest metal festival in Europe. It's for like 70,000 people.
That's so cool.
And our keyboard player, he basically loaded everything in his car like a couple of hours before driving off to Germany, and his equipment got stolen like that very day. Yeah, it was like, I think they must have been scouting his house, because they knew that he was a musician, that he sometimes like loaded his car with equipment or something.
Oh no.
Like 2 keyboards, one the digital guitar processing unit, I don't know what else. It was probably like 7,000 euros worth of equipment.
Devastating.
Yeah, it was horrible.
No.
Yeah.
What happened? What could you do?
Nothing. Well, he called police, and afterwards we were looking. There's like some bidding websites on the Netherlands where you can sell used things, and we're scouting them to see if the equipment would show up. And one of the things actually did, and they actually called the guy, like, hey, I want to buy it. So they were basically like, he and another member of the band were trying out this whole scheme to basically get the police to like chase the guy. But apparently in the Netherlands they can do anything unless they take your money. Like when they need to actually sell you the stolen goods before they can do anything.
But then you're losing more money by giving over the money when they've already taken all your kit that you need to pay.
I know. But anyway, they needed to they needed to catch him in the act of selling the stolen goods, basically.
Right. Okay.
Very complicated, but they were actually like almost, getting that far that they would actually like get an address from him and go there.
Yeah.
But something tipped the guy off or something. It's like they made a little remark and then he didn't answer the phone anymore.
Oh no.
So, yeah.
Oh my gosh. How did it work for the gig though? Because if he just loaded up his car ready to drive to the gig, and was he able to borrow equipment for that? Or?
No, he was quite shook up, so we played without him, I think.
Oh, poor guy.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really sad. Wow. Yeah. I guess like now insurance has helped cover it, and it's he's got some equipment again. Hopefully. Yeah,
that was also shitty because it was I think insurance didn't cover it because it was in his car, and then if you want to get insurance that covers things when you're traveling, then it's very expensive. Anyway, it's not the most fun stories.
No, but well, it's certainly a tour disaster story, so it's my fault for asking, really. I asked for it.
No, I must have more, but it's, oh man, it's been so many. Wow. Yeah, no, that's something that I would have to think about a little bit longer.
Okay, on the next podcast.
Yes.
Okay, that
I'll
sounds
write
good.
it
On the
down and
next
have
one.
them ready.
Okay, I'll look forward to that. Wow. Well, I'm glad that nothing like serious has happened to you personally. That's really good. I think if
No,
you can ask
yes.
somebody about their tour experiences and they can't tell you something that happened to them personally, that's very amazing and good
I mean,
experience.
I do remember a couple of really terrible hangovers, but you don't want to hear about that. No one wants to
Oh
hear about that.
dear. Well, seeing as that's normally self-inflicted, I'm guessing that the people that you were working with must have been absolutely amazing to like set up for the shows and thwart anything that could have gone wrong. You know, they were like prepared for all those eventualities. So
Yes.
that's a real blessing. It shows the caliber of people that you've been able to work with.
Yeah, definitely.
But talking about like working with people, and I know that touring is a very unknown thing right about now, what with all the coronavirus, everything rubbish that's going on. But what are your plans in that respect for the future when it comes to your music and what you're going to create next?
Well, I don't know.
Other than the Diva
I
song from
have
your
a
Patreons.
yes. So the vocal challenges definitely gonna do it. Continue doing that.
Yeah.
I also have a new metal project.
Fun.
That that I'm gonna release in the very near future. It's called Dark Horse, White Horse, and we are basically finishing up a 5-song EP that we worked on in the past couple of months.
Great.
And very excited about that. And we will see. I'm gonna get a little bit sidetracked with a story here that's actually not very nice, but I'm basically now trying to pick up my life and pick up everything up because last year in September I was diagnosed with cervical cancer. And yes,
I'm so sorry.
no, that's okay. Don't worry because
Oh my gosh.
I'm clean now. Like in
Really?
March, yes, in March I underwent this like super horrible treatment that was very heavy and very tolling on my body, but luckily it worked. It did what
you
it had to
strong,
do.
amazing woman, you. Oh my
Yes.
gosh. Wow.
And
Congratulations.
so
I'm
thank
so
you.
happy that you're...
Yes, it's a little bit of a
Gosh.
yes, a little bit of a tangent there, but so because of that, I'm now like basically like restructuring my whole life, you know, and trying to figuring it all out. And I know that I want to write about this at some point, but well, maybe I'm almost there. It's something that I couldn't imagine doing in the beginning, and now it's becoming a little bit more. You know, like you step back and then you see it like from a distance, and yeah. So this is definitely a journey that it's taught me a lot. So I think it would be nice to write about it at some point. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. It must be so difficult to think about writing about it when you're in that point, though, because it's also raw at that point, isn't it? Oh gosh, I can't imagine how. Like,
it was scary. It was so scary, and basically a whole roller coaster of emotions because, well, long story short, but the starting treatment took a really long time because I had a lot of tests done. At some point, it was even the question like whether I was going to be able to be treated, like to be actually cured. It was just going to be like, you know, delaying the inevitable. Luckily,
oh my gosh,
that was not the case.
What a thing to have to try and like compute in your head. I can't even.
I think for the longest time I couldn't. I mean, they tell you that, and it's just that doesn't. You know, no, it just doesn't compute. No. But to me, the I think what did the trick eventually is, I mean, I was lucky enough to have a very good prognosis, so I had that in the back of my mind, like, okay, it should be okay, you know, and I had everyone telling me like, no, it's gonna be fine. I had a lot of really beautiful people like around me, like helping me and supporting me and lending me their shoulder when I was like totally terrified, and learning to talk about it and be able to, feel that fear and not pushing it away, and also finding ways to calm myself when I needed to.
Oh my gosh.
That made a whole difference. Yeah.
Wow. I'd want to run away from that fear. Like embracing the fear and feeling it would just, I don't know how I'd cope with that. Like the way you're talking about it now, you sound so brave and so together. I can't help but really admire you.
I appreciate things. It took a long way to be, to come to this, and I can still be very scared about it because, of course, there's always a fear. I talked about this with a couple of friends who've unfortunately also had cancer, and you're always afraid. It's just something that makes you very aware of your own mortality. And for me, that has been always been super scary. So I don't want to think about it. But now I have to. So, gosh. But if anything, I think, and it's really made me appreciate a lot of things so much more. It's gonna sound cheesy as hell, but I genuinely like stop myself every day, like several times, like, oh my God, what a beautiful day. Or this is the most delicious pineapple that I've ever had. Or I am having so much fun on this podcast. It's like, I seriously, it has brought me a fair amount of good things as well. I can look at it now like that, and I'm thankful that I can. Yeah.
Wow. I can't imagine the music that's going to come out of this then when you start writing about it, because it's such a horrific thing to have to deal with.
Yeah.
But then to have you talk about how it makes you appreciate more things, it's funny, the sort of complete opposite that is, isn't it? When you're so terrified, but then the wonder of everything, of this amazing pineapple that you've just had, like, I love that.
It's really good.
It's really good. So do you think that is where your music is going to take you next, into, I guess it's a way of helping you digest all those roller coaster of emotions that you've had to go through? Is that kind of how you're thinking it will manifest itself?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And if anything, maybe try to share that message that you hear it everywhere, but it is about enjoying every single moment that we have, and it is about appreciating the little things, and that's all there is basically in life, I think.
Wow.
And so I don't think I'm ready yet, but I'm feeling it's getting closer and closer. So when the time comes, I wanna write about that, and it's probably gonna be a solo album, the same kind of instrumentation that I've had on the previous one.
That sounds beautiful.
But I also have a friend that I've been doing some more like trip hop tracks with.
Trip hop?
And kind of like, if you like think old Portishead albums, I don't know if you listen to that. And that's something that I really want to try as well. So thanks.
Yeah, more diversity, more versatility. I love it. That's really cool. But it sounds like your fan base, I mean, the way that you talk about them, you obviously appreciate them and love them so much. And they must be so supportive of you as well. It really does sound like they just love being a part of your life, and they do want to support you with every journey that your music decides to take. And so no matter where you go next, I'm sure you'll have an amazing support network of artists and fans around you that will want to go on that journey with you and help you through the digestion of those emotions, no matter whether it's trip hop or a more classical kind of style. And that's such a blessing to have, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. I was I hid my illness for a really long time. I didn't want anyone to know, and of course my hair now looks very different and stuff, so it was just, I didn't want to seem vulnerable to people for the longest time. And then at some point I put it on the internet, and I was like, within seconds I received so much love and so many good wishes and good vibes and prayers. I'm like, why would I even keep this to myself? I feel very, very blessed to have people that are listening. Yeah.
Wow. Well, on that wonderful, wonderful note, appreciative note, I'd like to say how much I appreciate you for coming on the podcast and sharing so much of yourself, and how I appreciate everybody that is watching and listening, and just thank you for coming and sharing your time with us, and thank you for being so generous with your time, Marcela, as well. You've been so wonderful, and I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed this. It's been amazing.
I think we have a lot more in common than I realized in the beginning.
Well, when you're just chatting to people on the internet doing a course together, sometimes it's difficult to know everything about someone, but that's the beauty of a podcast, is that I get to ask you so many questions, find out more about you, and I've just loved it. You're such an amazing, interesting person, and I'm so grateful.
I want to do a podcast now so that I can ask you all the questions.
Maybe one day you'll have to start that up. And if you do, I will look forward to spending a good couple hours talking to you. I will look forward to that.
I might have to think about that.
Yeah, absolutely, because you're such a joy to talk to. I'm sure that other people would love to sit and talk to you as well, and I've so enjoyed it. We're going to need to make sure that we put all the links in the description as well, so that people can check out all these different things that we've been talking about. But yes, thank you so much for being so generous with your time, and I'm so grateful that you shared so much of yourself, and you were so vulnerable, and you shared so many stories. It was just amazing getting to know you. So thank you so much for joining me on the Mary-Jess Meets podcast. I am so grateful.
It was my pleasure.
Well, thanks so much, Marcela. I look forward to chatting to you again very soon, because I want to know more about this vocal technique book as soon as possible. And oh my gosh, I've just enjoyed talking to you so much. So you can probably expect a few messages from me soon, continuing this conversation. Cool. Well, thank you so much again for joining us, and I'll speak to you soon.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Thank you.